We are in the huge sound room, and behind me is one of the coolest systems at this show. What can I say? Well, the Wilson Audio Boulder is a giant. It's North America. A few words about the company. Wilson was founded by David Wilson. He worked at Absolute Sound, one of the largest magazines, and decided that he didn't like any of the speakers out there, so he wanted to create the coolest, most high-end, and most expensive speakers of that time. And that's how Wilson Audio came to be. By the way, this isn't their best model because, as far as I remember, they have the WAM Master Chronosonic. Those look absolutely out of this world, huge and super cool. But these ones also sound more than amazing. And they're powered by Boulder. That's Colorado for us. I believe they're made in a city that's actually called Boulder. That is translated as a boulder. And as you can see, their philosophy is all about big, powerful, top-notch equipment. Their streamers look stunning. Their philosophy is also professional. That is, they originally made professional audio equipment and then gradually moved into hi-fi, into high-end. That's how I see it, though maybe the guys will correct me. This is the most precise, fast, and spacious sound. That's exactly what I love. First of all, my system is somewhat similar to Bristol monoblocks. Their philosophy is quite similar. But Bristol, of course, is definitely a more budget-friendly option. And they're also set on titanium cones, connected with Nordost's top-of-the-line Odin cables. Oleg, could you please tell us a bit about your system? What inspired you to create such a truly top-tier setup?
Let me clarify something right away. You said to correct you if anything was off. So there was a statement that this is far from the best Wilson audio speaker system. That's not quite accurate. Wilson has a large lineup of models, right? Each Wilson audio model is good in its own way. Even the smallest Sabrinas can produce excellent sound in a small room, provided they are connected and paired with the right equipment. The same goes for the WAM Chronosonic. I can't really say that it's the best Wilson audio model.
Well, it's the most expensive.
The most expensive. It requires a huge room, massive amplification, a much more serious approach. For me, the Alexia from Wilson Audio is kind of a best buy. When for still reasonable, sensible money, you already get very serious sound. That's actually why we put it here. In my personal opinion, this speaker, in terms of price to sound ratio, is top notch for Wilson Audio top. That's what I wanted to touch on a little bit.
Well, it sounds gorgeous. No questions about it. Fast, powerful.
Now, let me show you what we try to achieve here at this exhibition in our room. Our room is large, 70 square meters. We wanted to set up and did set up two completely different systems in terms of philosophy. So one system is tube-based, single-ended, with high sensitivity 8 ohm speakers, which naturally delivers a very airy, transparent, and fast sound. The second system is the complete opposite, a real antithesis. These are resistor-based, ultra-powerful, pure-class amplifiers. If I'm not mistaken, the Boulder has 1,000 watts per channel, yes, doubling to 2 ohms. This is DCS, which is also practically the pinnacle of the industry in digital music playback. And of course, Wilson Audio. So this is that eternal debate among audiophiles, which is better, transistor or tube. In the same room, we try to create something that, in our view, was a fairly high-level tube setup and a truly top-tier transistor setup. And in fact, the outcome of this exhibition showed that we presented and organized everything very well because the audience was almost evenly split in their opinions, right? That is, some people chose the tube and said that everything else was not serious. This is life, this is speed, this is realism, this is astonishing. And exactly half of them said, guys, well, this is all just playing around, but this is the real deal. So basically, we really tried our very best to satisfy all the wishes and requests, so to speak, of the audiophiles who came to the exhibition.
Good idea, Andrei. And you, Kirill, what do you say? How do you like it?
I think this is the greatest value that Huge Sound brings to its audience. Look, they gather the best components from different brands, combine and mix them. First, they listen to them. They've already listened to them, right? You can get a kilowatt of sound for this amount. Exactly. And they bring us only the very best. And for us, the potential audience, all that's left is to listen and choose. By the way, you can actually order a Wilson Audio speaker, even in several custom colors. Can you get one?
Of course, there are plenty of examples, a huge selection.
Come a little closer to the microphone. What would you choose as a Mercedes fan?
The Charms brand? It's like Hermes. My corporate color is orange. So, Oleg, tell us, how much extra would it cost to order the Alexa in orange?
Not much more than the base color. Not much. About, I don't want to be inaccurate, but I think an additional color costs around $3,500 at Wilson Audio.
And what about the time?
There's no difference.
No difference?
No.
And in general, how long does delivery take approximately? If I, for example, order it in orange, how long would it take?
As a rule, it takes about 4 months from the moment of payment. Sometimes it's faster. It depends on whether there are already prepared cabinet blanks.
Do they already have orange ones at the factory?
You mean the blank itself, right? So this composite, it has to be cast in advance. And sometimes a batch has already been processed and released into production, and sometimes there are spare blanks available. If there are spare blanks available, the time frame can be cut in half.
Well, colleagues, what can we say? This is a huge competitive advantage for Huge Sound.
Because they can tailor the system to your room, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. You can choose the colors. The color palette is quite extensive. We'll show you later, and you'll be able to get everything according to your taste and design preferences. Most importantly, everything comes from a single source from Huge Sound.
Tell me, why did you choose Nordoster? I see you have one here. You know, the whole cable topic is actually a very slippery subject. A lot of people think it's all nonsense, that it doesn't work, that it's all
I get that comment all the time.
an absolutely overhyped topic and that there's no difference. And then people come in and say, I'm a physicist, I'm an electrician, I know everything about this, there's no way this can affect the sound. And in principle, up to a certain level of the system, there really is no difference between cables. And actually, it's not just that people aren't ready to hear the difference, they simply don't hear it because their systems level doesn't allow them to notice any difference in cables. As soon as the systems level steps over, well, let's call it the boundary between hi-fi and high-end, then the higher it goes beyond that level, the more clearly you can hear the difference even in a single cable, let alone in the entire wiring. A small digression, yes. And accordingly, cables are selected for each setup in a very individual way, including based on what exactly the customer wants to achieve, already having certain equipment in their room and saying, for example, that they're missing a bit of bass, or on the contrary, that there's a bit too much bass for their taste, or that they want to emphasize the high frequencies, or they need a very neutral, balanced cable in which no frequency range stands out. And so, based on all this information, the cable setup is selected. Well, that's the ideal scenario. He is also being selected for the exhibition. That is, we also listened to a number of cables. We understood what the conditions would be at the exhibition. It's a huge untreated space and it would be noisy with lots of people. Accordingly, based on these initial conditions, we selected the setup that, in our opinion, would deliver the best results at the exhibition. Although in a quiet room at home or in a showroom, I personally wouldn't use this particular setup.
Nordo's cables are very fast, they have an interesting bass, and they're quite penetrating. So if we look at the Norse lineup, our top model here is Odin. By the way, there's also the gold Odin. Have you heard it?
No, unfortunately, I haven't even held the gold in my hands yet. 1, 2, yes. But the gold, unfortunately,
I haven't heard it either. At one time, I had the first Odin. Really awesome cables. I think, yes, they fit well here. And it was the right decision to put them on titanium stands. How many? 3 pieces, right?
3 under the components. We would have put them under the Boulder too, but there's a bit of a challenge. It's 100 kilograms and there are ventilation holes underneath.
Agreed. I have no questions about the system's competence, especially DCS, basically. Among ready-made solutions, it's probably the pinnacle with their so-called matrices. So everything is great. The bass is gorgeous. The resolution, the sound stage. Again, I'll repeat, at this exhibition, almost half, maybe even more of the systems I listened to had no soundstage at all. I really don't understand what's so difficult about creating a proper soundstage so that the vocalist just sings in the center. Here, everything is perfect. The stage is deep. There's nothing difficult about it. You need to come to the Huge Sound showroom and listen.
Or you can come to me as well.
With a premium card,
I can also share my opinion about the soundstage. I mean, actually, it is difficult. I always make sure the soundstage is precise. Well, that kind of characterizes you as a good installer, because setting up the soundstage, especially in a challenging room specifically, for example, if you pay attention on this wall, our speaker isn't placed in the center, right? And to set up the soundstage so that it's as accurate as possible with the vocals coming from the center and all the instruments positioned correctly took us, about 7 or maybe 8 hours? It was really difficult. No one bothered with it before. When the room is perfect, yes, it's a little bit easier. But if there are any complications, for example, if there were a window on this wall that wasn't centered between the speakers, then it's up to the installer's skill to understand what needs to be done and how to do it in order to create the soundstage. After that, it all just depends on the knowledge, enthusiasm, and diligence of the person setting up the system. In principle, you can set up a soundstage in any system, even an expensive one. I absolutely agree. There should always be a soundstage. I agree with you, Oleg. You probably set it up by ear too without any instruments, right? No, to be honest, we use a microphone, especially if, well, initially, of course, we set things up using tape measures and some basic knowledge, yes, by listening to the room naturally where there are resonances, where the room starts to ring, where it doesn't, we look for the right spot, and then, of course, we listen to the result that we've achieved. And if we're not satisfied with that result, then we move on to fine-tuning using a special program and a microphone so that we can be sure relative to the listening position whether we've actually set up the speakers symmetrically. Why? Because the walls might not be parallel. Yes, the walls might be uneven. The same goes for the side walls. We don't really know exactly how far apart they are from each other or how they're positioned. And here, only with the help of a microphone can you literally find, sometimes you move the speaker half a centimeter, you already get it. Absolutely right. Exactly that sweet spot where you can hear everything. I agree. That's why we use a microphone. But here, you manage without it, right? Yes, here we manage without it. But actually, there was a whole team setting up this particular system. Over there, we handled it pretty quickly. Here, Wilson is actually quite tricky to set up. If you pay attention, it has movable heads. Yes. That is, its head moves forward and backward, up and down, and the tweeter can also be extended. And all of this makes things a bit more complicated. Well, it's like a Formula One car setting it up properly so it runs well. Well, a race car is, of course, a bit more complicated, just a bit tougher. If we interpret this purely in terms of acoustics, then this is really the very top of the top. And tell me, they use ScanSpeak drivers, as far as I know, right? And before that, well, for a very long time, Wilson used focal drivers, right? Those ones, they used to call them ceramic, but actually, as far as I know, they're not ceramic. They were made from some kind of polymer. And Wilson made a huge leap when they stopped using focal drivers and developed their own drivers with paper woofers. But for the mid-range driver, they still use ScanSpeak, though made to their own specification. Silk tweeter. And in my opinion, at least, Wilson made incredible progress when they stopped using focal drivers. The speaker became a completely different class. And in addition, there were some further improvements, I believe, in the previous and the one before last generations of the entire lineup, which allowed them to really reach, if not the absolute number one spot, then definitely the ranks of the industry's greats.
So this system is basically the very top that you would recommend? Or do you have any other?
You see, it's hard to say that there's one system that's the top choice for everyone.
Well, make a suggestion. For example, a large room for someone who loves rock.
Let me ask, who is your target audience? So who is your client? Who is supposed to come here, sit in this chair, and be so blown away that they'd immediately open their wallet? Who is that?
It should be someone who really loves listening to music in high resolution, first and foremost.
And if he doesn't love, what if someone comes for the first time and, let's say, is so impressed that they're ready to buy?
Well, in that case, he must love and listen to music, right? I have friends and acquaintances who could afford to buy practically any system, but they don't, because it doesn't bring them any pleasure.
Maybe, in my opinion, you're actually getting too deep into the technical side of things. You create works of art, right? Take Boulder, Wilson Audio, for example, everything is great. So you're experts, you have the expertise, you've put together this setup. You say, yes, this is an amazing story. That's it. We've set it up. Come here, listen, give us your card. Something like that kind of story. Maybe it's better to deliver this kind of message directly to the audience.
No, look, I really think it actually works a bit differently, right? Again, you see, it's not really just about selling equipment at all. It's more about, if you can put it this way, selling emotions.
Well, of course.
So the people who buy this are people who get pleasure from listening to music at this quality. It brings them enjoyment and evokes emotions. And
they trust your expertise, right? After all, you take the best from each brand, right? And combine it.
But how can they understand our expertise? Primarily through the emotions they experience while sitting in the chair. That's exactly what I call selling emotions. If a person isn't moved here, they won't pay any, not 1,000 rubles. Not 1,000,000 rubles, right? It didn't move him. But if someone is moved, then really it just depends on what they can afford within reasonable budgets. They'll spend as much as they can on something that will bring them joy. That's more or less how it works.
Well, apparently, yes. I'm all for emotions too. I also believe that it's all about the fact that a person who maybe has never heard of Boulder or doesn't know what Wilson Audio is can just come in and be so captivated by the emotion that they're ready to pull out their card right then and there. That's the ideal client. Sorry for distracting you from the technical side.
It's all good, Kirill, you know that.
And behind us is another one of your systems, the one you were just talking about. It's designed quite stylishly and the speakers look really extravagant. Could you please tell us what this setup is all about? What makes it cool? Obviously, it's supposed to be as gentle as honey for jazz and vocals, right? Is that so?
Look, I'll start with the speakers, because in my opinion, that's the main component in this system. So the speakers are Blumenhofer Acoustics, a German brand. You could say they are made within the Blumenhofer family itself. Thomas Blumenhofer, the owner of the company and also the chief engineer, has been doing this pretty much his whole life. We even have a report about them from an exhibition on our website. You can check it out. What makes this speaker special? It's a high sensitivity 8-ohm two-way speaker with a horn design. It was originally designed for tube amplification and in fact delivers the best results with tube amps. The unique feature of this speaker is that it has an almost undamped enclosure. So if you tap on the speaker's cabinet like this, it actually resonates, it's really playing. Yes, and
Usually everyone tries to avoid that.
resonance, yes. The philosophy here is that the cabinet's resonance is tuned to work in harmony with the driver. In other words, it's somewhat musical. It's built on the principle of a musical instrument, like, say, the soundboard of a violin. That's exactly what gives this speaker its natural, lively, and realistic sound. But accordingly, it also has certain limitations. It doesn't play heavy music well. It does play it, it reproduces it, but it doesn't really give you any pleasure when listening to it.
The kind of music I like to listen.
But in its own genre jazz, blues, vocals, classical, it's truly grand. And to confirm my words, in 2016 at the exhibition in Munich, I think they were even debuting then, or maybe it was their second year this speaker took first place. That is, it won the Best Sound of the Show award among all participants. There were 350 systems. And again, considering the price of this speaker compared to the other systems that participated, some of them cost up to $2 million. It was simply a sensation that a speaker with such a small budget won the Best Sound of the Show. So, in fact, we are now representing them in Russia and
You can buy them, right?
we're proud.
Houston's competitors.
At the very least, you can come and listen.
Houston. So, dear viewers, come and listen to the heavy transistor boulders and also the very light, airy, magnificent ones. What are they called?
Blumenhofer?
There you go. Blumenhofer.
Well, you love everything.
Yes, I do love everything. So, how about the finale?
The finale. What should I say? Well, it's a great room, a large space. Everything is set up. Professionals are working here. I would like to see all rooms with the same uncompromising approach.
Yes, I like it. Yes. After all, Houston brings the very best.
Thank you for the kind words.
Anytime.
It was a pleasure talking with you.
All the best. Now,